most of you know, some of you don't, but I grew up in a rough situation in terms of my mom. My mom, she's no longer living right now, but I loved her so much. I loved her so, so dearly. However, my mom had a drug addiction. My mom was addicted to crack cocaine, and I grew up in a very rough circumstances around that. It was tough, and we went through a lot of things together. And although I knew my mom loved me, she knew that I loved her, it was still hard and it was still rough. And as I got older, I started resenting her a whole lot more. And it was, I would say, when you grow up with a parent who has an addiction, it is hard to explain to other people the kind of stuff that you go through, because people who never grew up with that probably wouldn't even understand the depth of how that affects you, physically and really emotionally. But I grew up like this. And as I grew up and got older, I started harboring all this resentment towards my mom. And I'm telling you, anything could happen to me in my life, and I was blaming my mom for it, right? I could cough wrong and it was my mom's fault. Right? And it was crazy. And it wasn't until I was in college that a friend really said to me, "Why are you talking about your mom like that?" And I'm like, "What you mean? She did all these things. She did this and this and this and this and this." And he said, "I get it. I understand it. But your mom is the only mom you'll ever get." And when I tell you, that statement hit me like a ton of bricks, it hit me so hard. And I'm like, huh, you're actually right. And so from that point on, I started on this forgiveness journey. And it was difficult. It was very, very hard because we were still going through our drama and our stuff together. But I started on this forgiveness journey because I knew it was important. What he said to me was true. She was going to be the only mom that I ever get in my entire life. I would never get another. And so I needed to try to figure out how to make the best of this relationship. And that's what I set out to do. So I started off trying to forgive her and going through a series of things that we're going to actually talk about today on this episode. And long and behold, one day I called my mom and I said, "Hey mom, how you doing?" She says, "Oh, baby, I'm doing okay. I'm trying to get myself, together." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay." And she says, "Keisha," which is, most of y'all don't know that's my real name. "I hope I didn't ruin your life. And listen to me. Had I not been doing my forgiveness work on myself in this relationship, I might have said something different than what I'm about to tell you. But here's what I said. I said, Mom, I said, no. As a matter of fact, you didn't ruin my life. As a matter of fact, you made me who I am today. I said, you have two beautiful daughters, of course, one being myself. You have a grandson who adores you. And despite all of your challenges, you worked your entire life," because my mom was very functional. And she says, "Wow, would you say that at my funeral?" I was like, "Mom, no, I don't want to talk about stuff like that. Like, I don't want to talk about that." The next day, I went running. And my sister calls me and I'm running and she says, "Stop." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm almost done." She's like, "No, no, just stop." And then she said, "Mom died." This was the very next day, y'all. Come to find out, my mom had been suffering with pancreatic cancer. We had found out just very shortly before this time. And the conversation that I had with her the day before was the very last conversation that we ever had. It was the last time that I actually heard her voice. And I truly believe that had I not said what I said to her, she wouldn't have been able to die in peace and I wouldn't be able to live in peace. Right? Like, and that taught me a beautiful lesson about forgiveness. And listen, I teach this in every single thing that I do when I'm out speaking and everything like that, because this skill of forgiveness has allowed me to be the person that I am today, to be able to share my gifts and talents with you and actually even share this story with you and be the leader that I am. This is why I can see things that happen to people or have things happen to myself, even in the workplace, and forgive, right? And forgive. There's so many things that are happening out in our world. And yes, it is hard to forgive. It's hard. I'm not saying that this thing is easy, but it's necessary for us to move forward in our life. Because if we don't have forgiveness, how do you move forward positively? I don't see how you do that.